Well, it would be the same old thing if we ever met again, or if we didn't. Love that was not usable, the newest place. Those would be present too, unnoticed, in all the flourishing of the waste middle. Today I'm going to share with you a story told by Munro in her novel, Nettle. So it's actually a name of a plant, and this story is a very interesting one. I, as the protagonist, was deeply fond of a boy named Mike at the age of 8, and he was at the age of 9, so we were peers at that time. And we had a very good time together at our house, and we fooled around. We played game like a mimic warfare that children would play when they were little. But naturally, that the time for departure had always had to come. So did we. So we went on separate paths once we grow a bit older. And after that, we have our own lives, right? Separate lives. I get married, then I divorced, and he, Mike, had a wife and had 2 kids. But later on, we went to a party together of our mutual friend. So we met again, we greeted each other, and we actually got a chance to do something further, which is a golf game. And in that golf game that we participated both, we found that it's raining cats and dogs. As a consequence of that, we need to find a place to shelter. So we went to a tree under which we embraced and kissed, but nothing further. After that, we had a small conversation in which I discovered that Mike was very sorry for one thing. He killed his kid accidentally by running away on him when he was driving his car. It didn't separate him and his wife, but put them together in a more solid manner. And to quote from the original text, it says, "He and his wife knew that together and it bound them, as something like that would either break you apart or bind you for life. Not that they would live at the rock bottom, but they would share a knowledge of it, that core, empty, locked, and central space. And after knowing that, I knew that there wasn't any chance for us to have a further relationship because it's just a crush that we developed when we were kids. Nothing to it. But he and his wife got is something way profound, more profound and deeper. They have enjoyed something together, and that made their relationship like solid and perpetual. Here comes what I like most in this novel. They had a very good time together at the party, and they find themselves irritated on this game because they have a contact with a plant named Nettle. But after some bandaging, they recovered from that, little illness, so there's no big deal. Well, it will be the same old thing if we ever met again, or if we didn't. Love that was not usable, the newest place. Some would say not real, because it would never risk getting its neck wrung, or turning into a bad joke, or certainly wearing out. Not risking a thing is staying alive as a sweet trickle, an underground resource with the weight of this new stillness on it, this seal. I never asked Sonny for news of him, or got any, during all the years of our dwindling friendship. Those plants with the big pinkish purple flowers are not nettles. I've discovered that they are called Joe Pye weed. The stinging nettles that we must have got into are more insignificant plants with a paler purple flower, and stalks wickedly outfitted with fine, fierce, skin-piercing and inflaming spines. Those would be present too, unnoticed, in all the flourishing of the waste middle. So, what we've been experiencing and hold dear to will be nothing but some waste plants. How hurtful that is, how regrettable that is. But, well, at the same time, we know that we couldn't continue. So I think that Munro, through the story, told something about regrets in our lives, right? Something that could have been better and different, but we didn't have the chance to change its trajectory. And actually, there's another story that ran on the same line with this motif. It's called Runaway, written by Munro, and I'm gonna read another paragraph to you. It was as if she had a murderous needle somewhere in her lungs, and by breathing carefully, she could avoid feeling it. But every once in a while, she had to take a deep breath, and it was still there. So, the needle in her heart hurt her badly. Not badly, but when she paid attention to that, that hurt. When she didn't, well, it seems like there's nothing there. Why? Well, she was supposed to run away from an unhealthy marriage in which her husband was very dominating. He's dominating her spirit, not by physical abuse, but by, I would say, verbal violence. Didn't pay attention to what you say, didn't say that you are correct, right? So it's what do we call as PUA, I would say. And she decided to run away, and she did. But in the middle of her escape, she found that she couldn't picture a life other than the life that she's been leading. So she couldn't find an alternative to this unhealthy relationship. And she didn't manage how to find another identity other than the identity of her husband. So she was being fearful of the potential that's being open to her. As a consequence of that, she went back to home, and that's when she was having this sort of psyche. And I think it also reminds me of our humans' complicated mentality when we are talking about freedom. We often say that we are pursuing freedom, but it's like really, sometimes we are voluntarily bound to something because we are being very fearful of, possibilities, like the protagonist in Runaway. And then we feel the security that's associated with that. However, at the same time, it could also be the case that this boundary is not healthy and pathological. We want to break this order, hence, and have a new order that's more, I would say, constructive. But it's really hard to do that. And we often tend to judge that when we're looking at someone. But if it happened to us, I think it's really hard for us to really get away with this sort of dilemma. It also reminds me somehow about our opinions on something outside. When we're looking at a historical event, or let's say a news about maybe domestic violence or family abuse, and we are liable to abuse someone of being cowardice, being not courageous enough to run away from something that they don't like. You're just being, intimidated. But at the same time, we should notice that we're not them. We don't know the drawn out and long story of theirs in their lives, how they somehow make their courage diminished, and how they gradually subjugate themselves to the things that they are now being suffering from. So once you don't know the very origin and the very evolving process of that, it's very hard for us to see the truth of that story. The same case could be applied to looking at history, right? I think the most important thing for us is to be open for different opinions, because everyone could have opinion on others and on history, on many things, but few of us think, and that's a crucial distinction. To quote from The Great Gatsby, whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that not all the people in this world have had the advantages that you've had. So be open and be critical once you see the whole picture. I think that's another thing that I learned from this. The willingness to speak up, to stand out, to reach out once you see something clearly enough is extraordinarily sorely lacking in our society. And tell the truth and at least don't lie could be a start of that, I think. So I think that's what I learned from this.